Well, I had this video all planned out, written and ready to record, where I would discuss a potential Nintendo Direct for some time later in September. Then Nintendo beat me to the punch and announced it officially for the 4th. This was a lot sooner than I expected there to be a Direct in this month, but I'm not complaining. I still felt it was worth putting this video out there, so I hope you enjoy some of the rumours I've gathered from around the net and sprinkled in some of my own personal wishlist stuff for the Direct and ranked the most likely things that I think could be announced during tomorrow's presentation. So let's start with something that's been talked about a lot for really the lifespan of the Switch so far, but certainly in the last year as Nintendo's paid-for online service reaches its first anniversary, and that of course is Super Nintendo games. Come mid-September, many day one adopters of the Nintendo Switch online service are going to have to decide if they want to re-up to the service, and what better way to ensure that happens than announcing that SNES games are coming to the Switch just before the renewal date. The NES Online Suite launched with 20 online games, but I think even 10 really good SNES games with the promise of more to come would be enough to get fans to stump over cash for another year of the, well, let's be honest, fairly uninspiring service that Nintendo have offered to date. Apart from the fact it's a fairly obvious next step for the online service, we've seen tangible evidence that SNES Online Games will appear when a leaked image of the SNES Classic Controller was circulated online, very much like the NES Classic Controller, which is available for Nintendo Switch Online members to buy. I think SNES games are coming to the Switch Online, and I'm fairly confident that the September Direct is the place to announce this, so I'm sticking this one straight into the It's Happening tier. Sticking with all things classic Nintendo, lots of people are talking about the new Mario sports game from developers Camelot, who most recently made Mario Tennis Aces. Historically, Mario has featured in tennis, baseball and also the excellent Mario Strikers soccer game on the GameCube and Wii, but for me the Switch is severely lacking in a good golf game, so I could absolutely see a new Mario golf game announced. It would be the perfect game to play locally with split Joy-Cons. Another reason to have Nintendo Online, and would also probably feature some sort of motion control which would lend itself well to the Joy-Cons. I really think this could have legs with a spring 2020 release, but I'm going to put this in the very likely tier just purely because we've not seen or heard any rumblings at all about a new sports game, and with Mario and Sonic Olympics also due this year, Nintendo may be content that they've got sports covered for the next 12 months. I do think we'll see a quick dive into Fire Emblem Three Houses, with a thanks to the fans for making the launch such a success on the Switch, and also to announce what's coming in Wave 2 and possibly 3 of the Season Pass. Wave 2 is due by October the 31st, and Wave 3, which will include additional quests, is due by December the 31st. This is pretty much a given it will get some time, so I'm going to stick this into the It's Happening tier. Sticking with DLC and expansion passes, I expect we'll get the next character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate revealed, plus a release date for the already announced Banjo Kazooie entry. There are rumours of the new character, so I won't spoil that if you're trying to avoid the news, but it's pretty much confirmed that Banjo will be dropped around the 15th of September. Again, like Fire Emblem, this news is pretty much nailed on to happen during the Direct, and it also goes into the It's Happening tier. Apex Legends was released by EA pretty much out of nowhere back in February of 2019, releasing on the Xbox, PS4 and PC, but no sign of a Switch version. Of course, fans and gaming media started asking questions of the developers Respawn, and their corporate line has always been that they'd love to bring the game to the Switch and mobile eventually, but they have nothing more to say on it at the time. It seems every month there's an article somewhere about when or if Apex Legends is coming to the Switch, although it has most certainly been confirmed for mobile devices now. So, will we hear anything in this Direct? It kind of wouldn't shock me to get an announcement followed by "and it will be available shortly after this presentation," but perhaps a lot of that is my own desire for it to happen. We've heard nothing really concrete on it, and whilst that's not to say it definitely won't happen, I reckon it's unlikely, so I'm going to drop this in the outside chance tier, but we'll be keeping my fingers crossed for some news. Another team-based shooter that fans ask about coming to the Switch regularly is the hugely popular Blizzard game Overwatch. This hero first-person shooter game is a phenomenon now, with the Overwatch League, a professional esports league that started in 2018, worth millions of dollars each season. Blizzard have a good relationship with Nintendo, and the port of Diablo 3 being one of the best games on the Switch, so it makes sense to continue that relationship and open up Overwatch to millions of new players. Of course, we do have a pretty good reason to suspect that Overwatch is indeed coming to the Switch, when a couple of weeks back a listing appeared on Amazon showing an officially licensed Overwatch protective case for the Switch, and that launches in mid-October. This was quickly removed, but all but confirms the game will be launching for the Switch sometime. Personally, I'd be really excited to get Overwatch on Switch after not really getting into it on other consoles, and I'm going to stick my neck out here and say this is a given, and I'm going to be putting it in the It's Happening tier, and I can even see the direct opening with this announcement. As for a release date, well, it could insta-drop after the direct, and we also have that mid-October date for the case to go by, and also BlizzCon, the annual Blizzard-focused conference, is in November, and they could tie the launch into that as they did with Diablo 3. I'll pick the middle option and go with a mid-October launch for this one. I might as well chuck this final bit of first-person shooter news in with Apex Legends and Overwatch, and that's rumours of Call of Duty coming to the Switch in some capacity. Now, this story always seems to do the rounds on every direct, but I think this time actually has some legs. It's been recently discovered in the HTML code on the Call of Duty website that you can now link your Call of Duty account to your Nintendo Switch account. Not just any generic Nintendo account, as Call of Duty has been out previously on the Wii and Wii U, but specifically to your Nintendo Switch account. Now, this is pretty big news, I think. The linking functionality was actually supposedly live for a short period too, whilst it was being tested, or somebody just dropped the ball and made it live. But either way, could this confirm that finally the biggest first-person shooter is back on Nintendo hardware? I'd absolutely love COD on the Switch, and this year's incarnation, which confusingly is titled Modern Warfare again, drops on other consoles on October the 25th. Now, it seems odd that the other consoles have been announced for many months and the Switch gets announced just a month before launch, so we could be looking at a delayed launch on the Switch, maybe November or a December release for this one, or the website stuff is just really a red herring and was being put in place for another reason. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I'm not sure if it's evidence enough to guarantee a release on the Switch, but I'm going to put it in the very likely tier, as it's the closest we've got to something official about COD since the Switch launched. Okay, let's change pace a little from shooters and talk about Little Town Hero, the game formerly known just as Town. In mid-August, it was discovered that Game Freak, the developers of this game and more famously known for creating the Pokemon series of games, trademarked the title Little Town Hero, which would be very likely in reference to their upcoming Nintendo Switch RPG. I would expect a more formal announcement of this title, along with a release date window and some more footage. I'd say this is likely, so I'm going to put it in the very likely tier. A couple of post-apocalyptic rumours now. The first is pretty much nailed on, as it's already been announced for the Switch, and that's Obsidian's The Outer Worlds. Now, we know it's coming to Switch, but what we don't know is when. It will be released on other consoles on October the 25th, but a vague 2019 date has been given for the Switch version. We could see some more footage and a release date announcement here. I think that's quite likely, but at the same time, Nintendo don't tend to focus on the same games too often in directs, so this announcement could come outside of any direct, but I'm going to put this in the very likely category for now. Another one of those dream third-party announcements next that seems to come up before every direct, and that's the question of a Fallout release. Fallout creators Bethesda have been one of the biggest third-party supporters on the Switch, with Skyrim, Doom and Wolfenstein all being great games on the platform, and it does feel like they could bring Fallout to the Switch next. Could this happen at this direct? Maybe a port of Fallout 4? I'd again put this in the very likely tier and be keeping my fingers crossed. Now, forgive me for this is one of total self-indulgence on my part. I'm a big wrestling game fan, and so far the Switch has the ambitious but ultimately disastrous port of WWE 2K18 as its only serious wrestling game. While Fire Pro Wrestling creators Spike Chunsoft have a decent relationship with the Nintendo Switch, and in the past they've commented on how they've heard the call for Fire Pro on the Switch but have no news to share. Fire Pro is also historically a very Japanese-centric game, and they have released versions on other Nintendo consoles before, so there is good pedigree behind this rumour. Spike have lost a lot of money though, and the development of Fire Pro on other platforms has been pretty rough to say the least, so I think that whilst Fire Pro would be perfect for the Switch, with its pick up and play nature and an engine that doesn't require a high spec to run, I think it's a project we probably won't ever see come to light, and I'm dropping this one in the not happening category, much to my sadness. Whilst the will it won't it saga of Persona 5 looks destined to ultimately never happen, we know Shin Megami Tensei 5 from Persona developers Atlus is happening for the Switch, and was actually one of the first games announced for the console way back in January 2017, and was then confirmed being in full development in February 2018. Since then, very little has been seen or heard about the game, so it'd be a good time to bring out some more information and some more footage. That said, it's still shrouded in a lot of secrecy, and it's just as likely we go another direct without any news. I'm going to stick this in the outside chance category, I think. One of the more surprising announcements could come from Monolith Soft, creators of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Switch. The hugely successful title sold nearly 2 million copies on the Switch, making it the best-selling Xenoblade title to date, and earlier in 2019, Monolith put up adverts for a new position that had arisen in the studio for development of a new fantasy game. This seems ultimately to have been for the new Zelda title, probably Breath of the Wild 2, but could also be for a new Xenoblade game. I think what's more likely than a new game announcement from them is a port of the superb Wii U game Xenoblade Chronicles X, which has been rumoured on and off for the Switch for a while now. It could all just be conjecture, so I'm going to drop this in the outside chance category. Oh, Metroid, where do you even begin? With Metroid 4 development being scrapped and restarted, we probably won't get any news on that one for another couple of years. So this leaves the mythical Metroid Prime Trilogy collection for the Nintendo Switch to discuss. This collection of games seems to be on the cusp of releasing during every direct. In fact, in January 2019, it was said the game had been completed for some time, and it was just a case of deciding when it was going to be released. We've also had leaks of shops getting SKUs for the game, and at the most recent Game Awards, it was announced by many big YouTubers that they were convinced it was releasing during that show, so it's absolutely puzzling why we still have no news on a game release. If it is indeed finished and ready to go, it may well be a good time to drop it before the end of 2019 to perhaps offset the disappointment of the Metroid 4 and Animal Crossing delays. This could even be a huge announcement with the game being made available on the same day as the Direct. I think this is the Direct that we finally get the game, and I'm going to don my tin helmet for the backlash and put it in the It's Happening category. Talking of disappointing delays, I'm sure I'm not alone in having to be brave and keep a stiff upper lip with the delay of Animal Crossing to 2020. It would be nice to see some more gameplay for this one, though I suspect it will be heavily featured in the next Direct closer to launch in 2020, and we were given a lot of footage in the last Direct. There's a chance we may not get any mention of it here at all. I'm leaning towards a pretty quiet Direct for Animal Crossing whilst the team crack on with development, so I'm dropping this way down in the highly unlikely tier for now. That just leaves one more game rumour I want to discuss, but until I do, just a quick mention of the supposed Switch Pro that everybody seems convinced is coming at some point. Given the Switch Lite is still yet to launch and the revised base model SKU is just making its way around retail, I think it's possibly too soon to also throw the Switch Pro into the mix just before Christmas. I think the Lite's going to sell really well during the holidays, and another new model may just muddy the consumer waters. So I think if a Pro model is coming, we're going to get news of it early in 2020. I'm sticking this alongside Fire Pro Wrestling in the not happening tier. So the final bit of game news I want to discuss for tomorrow's September Direct is this rumour of Super Mario Sunshine. Towards the end of August, Nintendo of America tweeted an image of Mario enjoying some watermelon, saying that they had hoped our summer Odysseys were filled with sunshine. Cryptic. This has led fans speculating about a possible Super Mario Sunshine remaster for the Switch, or based on the wording of the tweet, possibly some new DLC for Super Mario Odyssey, which would incorporate elements of the Sunshine GameCube title. Now, it could all just be fans reading too much into a well-natured tweet from Nintendo, but it seems very odd that the specific wording that was used, and I would lean towards this being related to some sort of announcement during the Direct. Personally, given the use of the word Odyssey, and the fact we've not had any real significant DLC for Super Mario Odyssey, then I'm going for a big paid DLC add-on to that game. My only hesitation would be is that we're now coming out of summer, so it would be a little bit odd to promote a summery style game in the winter, but I'm sure fans would lap it up regardless. I think this definitely has legs, and I believe something is going to be announced related to that tweet, so I'm going to stick this in the It's Happening category. So there you go. Thanks very much for watching this video about tomorrow's, or today even, depends when you're watching this video, the September the 4th, shall we say, Nintendo Direct. You can see here from what I've predicted, I think we're going to see Super Nintendo games, some Fire Emblem and Smash Brothers DLC news, the announcement of Overwatch coming and Metroid Prime Collection, and also possibly some DLC for Super Mario Odyssey, and also very likely we'll get a new Mario sports title, an announcement of Call of Duty, some news on Little Town Hero, and some more footage of the Outer Worlds, along possibly with news of a Fallout 4 port. If we get those, I think most people would be really happy, and I'm sure there's plenty of surprises that Nintendo have got up their sleeve for us. They also announced in the tweet they sent out today about the Direct that they're going to be focusing mainly on 2019 games, including Pokemon and Luigi's Mansion. So, there's a lot of time to fill there. They've got 40 minutes for this Direct, so it's going to be full of decent stuff, I'm sure. But again, thanks for watching that. Please let me know in your comments below your thoughts for the Direct and your predictions. I'd love to hear what you think. And of course, let's all meet back here after 11 o'clock UK time tomorrow and see what actually was announced. But again, thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe. And I will see you guys probably after the Direct. Cheers. Bye-bye.